even a moment of full consciousness. Most of the great acharyas in the world, they only spent a few years in the world. Not most, but many. Jesus Christ preached a few years. Buddha, I don't think he was very long either. Shankaracharya. Many of them didn't stay very long. But in a few years, they were with us. They revolutionized the world. To this day in London or in England, anyone, not even those who don't, hundreds and thousands of those in the UK who never met him, are still inspired by him. You'll hear about that in a minute. So we'll start by singing the song. It's page 73 in this book. It may be different in yours. But they're just starting now.
No, it will go on for just 5-10 minutes.
5 or 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Can't they go on longer?
Cows are in a...
They're trying their best to work around it.
Which song?
What's the song? Pardon?
The song is called
Anilo, Prema, Sapashada Bhagavat Hiraha Janita Vilapa. Sapashada Bhagavat. Don't we think about Anilo, Prema? Tolerate. We can close the door.
You're going to download the app, is it?
Yeah, I followed the link. It didn't go anywhere. It wouldn't find.
Behind you also there's a window. There's
Hare
another
Krishna,
number
Prabhu.
on the window, be careful. We have 2 numbers today. Is this one yours?
Wow, good.
No, it's, I think from upstairs.
Somewhere. Showing up too for some reason. I'm going to maybe a little bit. Let's have the shots.
चलेगा
Maybe a little bit. Slightly. We can't lock it entirely, although it's no real reason. If anyone else has it, we'll get it.
अभी तो क्लास चल रहा है
Wonderful, here you have
8:30 बजे तो
you know,
पूछना
the
है
sounds there, you have the cows in here. Never a
ठीक है
down.
मैं पहुँचता तो फोन
But it's
करता हूँ
transcendental. Prabhupada was in London one time. Somebody was typing away, loudly those days, anti-typer. They said, is it disturbing you, Srila Prabhupada? Prabhupada said, no, it's the sound of kirtan. See, so devotional service, that's the sound of kirtan. Different form. Devotees, building or something like that. Of course, not unnecessarily. He didn't like slamming doors. Prabhupada was very, very disturbed. He was quite chastising doors. They were called slamming doors. Like that. Anilo, Prema. Rama, Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Shivanitai ki
Jai.
jai. Premadev ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Govinda Madhava ki jai. Look at us up on the wall there. Huh? Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki jai. Shri Shivanitai ki jai. Do you have them in your apartment?
Huh?
Do you have pictures in your apartment of the deities? I'll give you a set of these if you want.
I have. You gave me. You know my
Did I? If you want some blue tack, we can give you blue tack if you want. Not quite straight, but straight. Today is in New Mayapur, France. Balaram.
We have at home. Valmiki Prabhu visit from France.
Yes, Valmiki. He gave?
Valmiki Prabhu live home.
Uh-huh. Wow, Valmiki came.
After you.
Wow, Haribo. You remember Valmiki who came this year to New Mayapur?
Yeah.
The Russian devotees?
So nice.
It was his wife.
He's some sannyas. He's taking a sannyas. He came with some, I think Brahmacharis came as well.
Brahmachari, there were a couple Maharajas as well.
Some, he had a whole
Yeah,
group
big
with him,
group.
didn't he? Yeah, you may have seen him, may not remember. He didn't stay long. A few days?
I think so.
A few days.
And a few days in Paris.
Yeah. Traveling through Romania.
With his Panchatattva babies. He's carrying them.
God told me he is a name very, very current in Russian. And I knew one Valmiki from Russia who came and he is there.
Yeah, this one's, he's taking sannyas, huh? Maybe, I don't know when, sometime. Doesn't speak English. No English, only Russian. Nice. So I'm gonna, my computer's behind me or where is it?
Yeah, it's not behind you.
Okay, now I'm gonna read from some of the memories of Jerusalem. You could do that a little bit later when I'm giving my little talk. But now I'm going to read from others' talks. We're going to try to magnify the sound. We have a video of Tribhuvanath. Of course, it's old and it's not very clear, but it's still nonetheless. But first of all, we're going to read a little bit, hopefully, a little bit about some of the wonderful memories of Tribhuvanath. Some devotees share. So mainly I'm going to read. This is I'll start. The courage of a soldier, the innocence of a child. It's a nice kind of, what do you say, metaphor, whatever, way of describing him in a few words. Is he was fearless. Literally, I never seen many people that fearless. Honestly, he wasn't afraid of going anywhere to preach, and he wasn't one who was too much worried about public opinion in terms of even other devotees sometimes. In terms of, don't go there, don't do this. If the need was there, he'd do it. He had this kind of like spirit in him. You'll see why I'm that. And the innocence of a child, he was so simple and innocent. Very kind of, not at all the type of person who was into politics or anything like that. Not at all. So this is a little bit of a memory here. The first part's by Ranchor Prabhu. Maybe you've heard of Ranchor in London? Any of you? Oh. Rasikananda will know. I was sat next to him at that ceremony, that 50th anniversary one we just had in the Conway Hall. He was we were talking, he was sat next to me, we were old friends. Ranchor was very close with Tribhuvanath also. Tribhuvanath, this is by Ranchor, I named his first part. Tribhuvanath Das was born in 1953 in Longford. And you all know where Longford is. Oh, yes, the world famous. Even in Ireland, many people may not know where it is. It's in Ireland. He's Irish. And this is where this courage comes from. Huh? Irish people are famous for being quite courageous. Plus, many times they're drunk when they and they have no fear when they have enough Guinness inside them. That's the world. But we see many devotees. This devotee here, Parashuram, perhaps you know Parashuram, he came to France a few times, even recently. He is another one that is fearless. Fearless. Incredible. I was with him. I remember we were doing Padayatra in England about 3 years ago. They have this Padayatra in the southeast of England every year, near Canterbury. But the first one was not near Canterbury. It was between Hastings, Eastbourne and Brighton. And the devotee who arranged the route didn't check it out properly. And we had bullock cart and about 50 devotees on the Padayatra. The weather was terrible. It was in like beginning of June or something. It was awful weather. It was like 10 degrees and raining and windy. It was all ramped up. And he took this route, which was a beautiful route through the countryside along the coast, just a few meters from the cliff. It was a footpath. It was like when they walk past there, but it wasn't meant for bullock carts. We had to take down, physically dismantle gates and put them up, and move trees, all sorts of wonderful exercises. But the grand finale was we had to go in about 8-9 kilometers through this, obstacle journey. Was the downward path into the town. I've forgotten the name, a small town where we were going to stay the night. And we got to the top of the hill. Mahavishnu Swami was resting a few kilometers back. He was tired. We got to the top of the hill and we looked down. We could see hikers coming up with their sticks, hiking up the hill. And we had to go down that with a bullock cart. That was the plan. And Parashuram, afterwards, he said that was, of all the things, even more horrendous than his journeys down the Ganga, from the source of the Ganges on, rowboats. He said that was the most scary thing he's experienced in his life, practically, going down that hill. It was bizarre. We were all behind trying to keep our foot with ropes, pulling the cart back, and he's trying to jiggle the bulls this way and that. And at the bottom is a golf course. And there's all these golfers suddenly stop and they're looking up at us thinking, what the hell? This crazy looking cart with all these crazy looking people coming down the hill. Is this some kind of stunt? Is it a suicide attempt? What is going on here? It was like unbelievable. It's only by the grace of the Almighty that we made it. It was like the cart was like, literally. It was so steep, this hill. It was steep. Never again, he said after that. Never again on that one. Anyway, he's also from Ireland. He's very brave. So Tribhuvanath was from Ireland. His name was Thomas Hegarty, a good old Irish name. One of life's great individualists. All his life he stood out from the crowd. Like he didn't plan to, but he just did. He was one of those people, you just couldn't help but notice him if he was around. He did nothing. It was just him. He was doing nothing to try to attract attention. Quite the opposite. His charm and good humor contrasted with his sheer strength of character and fearless demeanor. He was so jolly and so sweet a person, but very serious at the same time. Very serious by Prabhupada's instructions, especially. Nothing was too much for him, and nothing dismayed him. Misfortune dogged his early life. Much of it spent in and out of care homes in Ireland. He was like an orphan. He had no real parents. In and out of care homes. Which left him semi-illiterate. He was semi-illiterate. He could read, no doubt, but I mean, he wasn't like, his speech was also not proper English. Sometimes he'd say mispronounced words. He wasn't fully literate. By the age of 16, he had arrived in London with his elder brother in search of adventure and was drawn to Eastern mysticism. 16 years old. Now in those days that wasn't so uncommon. This was in 1969. The hippies. He wasn't a hippie, so to speak, but he was a searcher. 16-year-old boys would just go here and there. Almost at once he met the Hare Krishna devotees and visited their London temple. He spent the day helping out, and when night fell and the community went to bed, he found himself back on the street. What they did, they told him that, oh, you can't stay. If you come every morning for Mangalarti, then you can stay. So 1 week. Something like that. Can you imagine? In the middle of London, a young 16-year-old kid, you know. You can't stay in the temple. That was the rule. You didn't just take anyone into the temple. You had to at least show that you were sincere, you know. 16 days. Getting up for Mangalarti, a young guy has to get up early in the morning. And he did it. And look who's here. Haribo! Nice Howard boys arrived. Hare Krishna. My boy. Haribo, Krishna Tastaya. We're having a French reunion today. Almost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We can't see who's in the corner. 8 of us all coming together here today. Wonderful to see you. Thanks for coming over. We're talking about Tribhuvanath, Prabhu. Maybe you don't know him. From England. It's his disappearance day today. 18 years ago. How are you, Mayapur? All good? Have you seen the baby calf? Oh, could you bring some of my medicine? I forgot again to take my medicine. It's not too late if I take it now. Some medicine, one more on that. Wonderful. Where are you staying? Oh. Where are you staying, Mayapur?
Oh, we're staying at Chaitanya Vihar, right in the phrase 1.
Where?
Chaitanya Vihar.
Chaitanya Vihar. Okay, you're over Chaitanya Vihar. Wow.
This is a nice place.
Yeah, this is cool. Right in the middle of the cows. In front, behind, on the side, everywhere cows. Calves and cows, day and night. I stay here. I usually stay in the room next to this, which is bigger. But now, with the crowds, there's no one staying there, but they say it's too crowded. There's no one there for the last 4 days. But they say it's too crowded. So maybe there's some hidden persons in there with a lock on the outside door. They lock them in. But anyway, this is cozy. There's not too many of us yet. We're hearing about memories of Tribhuvanath. You know, this is, believe me, this is going to be something. Yeah, we take, that one is like 5 tablets that I take. The magnesium is one, and then there's another one, the antique tablet. Maybe 4 just Saturday. Yeah, one of each. One of each. There's one more. There's the anti one I take. Yeah. And then there's the 2 drinks. Yeah. Yeah, split them down. You have to excuse me. That's some Ayurvedic analysis. So I'm trying to deal with a few imbalances in the system. see what happens. It hasn't helped me with sleep yet. I'm still. This morning I actually slept earlier. This morning I slept at 5 o'clock this morning. 1 hour earlier. 1 hour earlier than the day before, anyway. I take these special Ayurvedic tablets to help me to sleep about 10 o'clock at night. And it doesn't do anything. I don't know the waste of time taking them. I don't know. Maybe it takes time before they start having an effect.
Take them at 2 p.m. You should take them at 2 p.m.
Oh, that defeats the point. I won't sleep then till 8. Anyway, whatever. The wonderful thing in Vrindavan is just remember, whether it's midnight or whether it's midday, you're in Vrindavan, so try to be in Vrindavan. Don't start messing out, oh, this is terrible, I can't sleep, what am I going to do? Just sleep when you sleep. And use your time in the night, chanting and hearing. What difference does it make, night or day? Doesn't make no difference. In reality, does it? It may make a difference to your health. I'm not suggesting you do it. You may not be so happy with that, but then even if that happens, then just take it as somehow or another, that's what happens. Utilize the time. So back to where we are. So he was asked to go away and come back for Mangalarti. Cheers. That's a good. Give another one. Oh. What's the water? Then I get the rest of this nectar. This is why I stay up all night. You don't know what this is. Wonderful. Big message. That was my lunch. You have to cook one day. She can cook. Some borscht. Russian borscht. So when night fell, everyone went to bed. He was back on the street. When lights came on, 4 o'clock the next morning in the temple, Tom was waiting outside the front door to be readmitted. He was there for Mangalarti. He had slept the first night of his new Hare Krishna life in a park near the temple. This was in Lari Place. I guess he slept in Russell Park probably. That was to be typical of his abiding sense of renunciation and dedication. That very day he was accepted, and it says here one day, I heard it was 7. They said 7 days, but maybe they just let him out for one. That very day he was accepted into the community, and he at once threw his boundless energy into his new service. I remember one time, we were in Vrindavan. I don't know the year, probably in the 80s or early 90s. He arrived here, there was nowhere to stay. You know here in Vrindavan, brahmacharis come here. Now is it maybe a little bit more facility. There was nowhere to stay. He had no money. So he stayed in the... If you've been around the temple, you go on Prema around the temple itself immediately. At the back of the temple, have you ever noticed there's one little cupboard which is often open with shoes, with brooms and sticks inside it? He slept in there. That's where he slept. They wouldn't give him anywhere else to sleep. Okay. Sleep anyway. I'm sure we'll hear some more on that in a minute. Rancho says, when I joined, meaning when Rancho joined, 6 months later, Tribhuvanath was the mainstay of the temple workforce. He was 6 months in the movement, so he's an old devotee. 6 months. If you've been in the movement 6 months then, 1970, you were an old devotee. And if anyone needed anything done, he did it. And if anyone needed an example, he showed it of what it meant to be fully absorbed in the service of Krishna. We had only to look at him. He was particularly good at giving out encouragement. Very good. Irrepressibly cheerful, always able to look on the positive side. He had the knack of putting across the philosophy of Krishna consciousness in a way that was memorable and practical and totally sincere, despite his lack of formal education. One day, shortly after I moved in, we were invited to the London School of Economics to make a presentation on Krishna consciousness. The LSE, was a well-known melting pot of radical politics, and the students there were a tough audience, very socialistic mood in those days, revolution, down with the powers, no authority, that kind of thing, or to speak of God, or anything like that, After we had chanted, Tribhuvanath's talk held a large group spellbound, well beyond their lunch hour, entertaining and instructing them in equal measure. Somehow or another he was able to inspire them. Tribhuvanath's greatest love was to chant Hare Krishna on the street and play the drum. He would chant for hours, belting out the Maha Mantra. Good stop. He couldn't play the mridanga, by the way. He couldn't. It was just simply, Prabhu said one time when he heard me say, simply flapping. It's just like... it's just and pounding the drum as if his life depended on it, which in his mind it surely did. Anyone who saw him in full flow would be moved by his deep outpouring of devotion. Many days he would be worn out from long hours of work and too little sleep. But he would go out on the street morning and afternoon, dragging us behind him. Seeing his example was enough to make us want to raise our own efforts. He showed us what was possible. Gratitude for Guru's grace. A key to Tribhuvanath's unflagging energy was his love for his spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. He considered that his Guru's grace had saved him from disaster, and so his obedience to Prabhupada was unconditional. When I first joined the temple, I often used to hear Tribhuvanath begin, Prabhupada saves, and then quote, a suitable saying for the occasion. I asked him when he had heard all these things from, where? Prabhupada. I asked him when he had heard all these things from Prabhupada. He was surprised. He said, I haven't met Prabhupada yet. just so some of you don't know who Krishna Prastaya and her son Mayapur are. I'd just like to introduce them. They don't really want to be introduced. But Krishna Prastaya, when she was a young lady, was in the Gurukul in New Mayapur, France. And her father, some of you know quite well who her father is. His name is Hari Vilas Prabhu. Hari Vilas Prabhu was one of the first devotees in France. He's been a GBC, he's an initiating guru, of ISKCON, and we were graced today with Krishna Prastaya, one of his wonderful children, and her wonderful son, Mayapur. And where's your sister, Mayapur? On Prema. Who with? In Vrindavan Swami. Wonderful. They started it. Fabulous. So I think this is very relevant because I see some of the spirit of Tribhuvanath in Krishna Prastaya. You picked it up from your father. He had it too. He was also bold and fearless.
I was thinking you were describing yourself.
When
you were talking, I was like, wow.
Yeah, there's a misspelling here. This is the part which describes me. This is fact. This is what it says. Just a sentence before I just read. It says, gratitude for Guru's grace. Pig. It says. So that describes me. This is my part, the pig. I was reading this morning. Where were you hearing this morning? Was it yesterday? I was reading it. The brothers were saying that Prabhupada is in America. It's so difficult preaching to this group of people. They're all worshipping pigs. All these young kids in America. There was this time, 68 or something, 69, where pig worship became popular. It was like a rebuff of Christianity, you know. Why not just worship the pig? We don't need a god. We worship the pig. And they were having these pig beings. They would all go there with pigs and hogs, naked in the mud, and just roll around with pigs. American youth. Just see. Don't dare you try this. Can you imagine? They were talking to Prabhupada about what was it? He was like, shaking his head. What is civilization coming to? What chances pig worship? Prabhupada, where did you hear this from Prabhupada? Where, when? Tribhuvanath said, I've not seen Prabhupada. I've never seen him. But I've read all these things in his books. We all read the same books, but with him, Prabhupada came to life. The following summer in 1971, Prabhupada came to London, and most of us met him for the first time. Because most of those were initiated by post. Through a letter, Prabhupada would say, your name is Tribhuvanath, or your name is Rancho. And the beads would be sent in the post, or you'd have to get someone to, those days, the Prabhupada would send them. So he got initiated in the post. Tribhuvanath was selected to give Prabhupada a garland at the airport. In the weeks that followed, and in subsequent years, whenever Prabhupada came, I saw he always had eyes especially for Tribhuvanath. I wasn't the only one to notice this. We all know that Prabhupada had special affection for Tribhuvanath. In 1973, on Prabhupada's first visit to Bhaktivedanta Manor, we were chanting Hare Krishna at the end of his Bhagavad Gita lecture. Prabhupada used to give morning class at Bhaktivedanta Manor in July, August, September 1973. Not Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, first chapter. Every morning. What's now the theatre room. And just devotees, a group of young devotees, every day there. And afterwards, it's short class, usually 20, 30 minutes, and then kirtan. After the lecture, Prabhupada looked grave. Soon Tribhuvanath stood up right in front of Prabhupada, playing a mridanga. Dancing is unique, flat-footed dance. Yeah, he like dance flat-footed, like on his toes. Yeah. His back straight and erect, like a trained actor. He always be straight. Usually have his head up. His weight back on his heels, and his feet beating the ground, while his head nodded up and down. His eyes met Prabhupada, and suddenly they were both laughing with each other in perfect harmony. In the years that followed, I seldom saw Tribhuvanath. Prabhupada called him to India to help lay the foundations for ISKCON's temples there. And after that, he just kept traveling and preaching. But I'll always remember him as he was on that day in 1973, laughing for sheer joy before his beloved spiritual master. He went to India. Actually, when I joined, Tribhuvanath was in Scotland. He doesn't mention that here. That doesn't mention everybody. But in 1971, Tribhuvanath was made the temple president of London Temple. Maybe 70, end of 70, beginning of 71. I wasn't there, but I came a little later. He was the president, because he was an older English devotee. He was 6 months or something in the movement, so they made him the president of the temple. And he lasted quite a while, maybe a month. Which in those days was a fairly good run for a temple president in ISKCON. It was nothing unusual for the president to change 6 times in a year. It was just another service you did. You didn't think, I'm the president. You might be the pot washer the day after. It wasn't like, everyone did whatever they were asked to do. If you had to be the president, you'd be the president. If you asked to wash the pots, you washed the pots. And then if you were the president, you still had to wash the pots. Even when I joined, when I came in 71, the temple president was, you wouldn't have known, they would just do the same as everyone else. Go on Harinam all day, be there for the program, clean the floor. They didn't have like an elitist position. They had more responsibility. And maybe sometimes they had to deal with, well, there wasn't much to deal with. We had no money. We had no interactions with the world practically other than Harinam. We didn't pay any bills. Bills come. I don't know if they just threw it in the bin or what they did. They never got paid. You had to give class maybe more than others or something. What to do? If they had any problem, they say just get out on Sankirtan. That was the only answer you could have. You have a problem, just get out on the street. Go on Harinam. There's no question of cancelling devotees. Just get out on Harinam. That will solve your problems. If it doesn't, hard luck, Then he was sent to Scotland, or he went to Scotland. He went there with a boy named Kishore. You may know him. Kishore Prabhu. They went to Scotland, and literally they went to a place called Dundee. They were staying on the street, in the basement, in the winter, in the freezing cold. They had nowhere to stay. They got harassed. They were doing Sankirtan. Police arrested them. They went to Edinburgh, the same thing there, in the freezing cold. They had nowhere to stay. Tribhuvanath, they would just stay in this place, in a derelict house, in a park, sometimes someone's house, sometimes stay here, wherever they could for months like that. Months. In the winter, late 71. And then Tribhuvanath would walk. Most of the night he wouldn't sleep. He would go walking, looking for places they could rent. If they could find a place for a temple for Prabhupada. He would walk the streets. And the daytime they would go on Harinam all day long. And in the winter it gets so cold. In Edinburgh, freezing cold. And he ended up one day in hospital. He had frostbite from His hands were so cold. He was just beating the drum, but his hands were like stiff. He couldn't feel them at all. It's like bang, bang, and just the arms were just banging these pads at the end of the arms. He would never stop. Never stop. And they got harassed by the local authorities. The local council said that, we're going to kick you out of here if it kills us. They got arrested. It was all over the newspapers. His cult was stuff. But he never stopped. And one of the chief members of the council said, over my dead body they will carry on doing this. I will get them out of here by all means. And this is a true story. Within 2 to 3 days, that councillor dropped dead with a heart attack. He dropped dead on the bus with a heart attack. And after that, things started to open up, and they found this place, Forest Road, an old place, very close to the university. Why? They got it very cheap because nobody wanted it. It was the famous haunted house of the area. Edinburgh is a haunted city, if any city is. The history of Edinburgh is like really spooky. The most popular thing in Edinburgh is the spook run. You pay a lot of money to go around all these haunted places and spooky places at night. They have all these guided tours around them. God, I'm getting excited. You like that, Maya? Oh, it's fun. I've not done it, but it is. It's one of these really old cities with all these histories. Anyway, he preached there. Amazing place, a big hall. He got this place and he was incredible. Well, I didn't see him when I first came because he was already in Scotland. We just heard about them, And occasionally they come down. It was like, wow, where are these guys coming from? It was like they were coming from another planet. These are forged, ecstatic, devotees, in Kishore, like straight into kirtan, Krishna guitar, service, let's go, let's get out on Harinam. It was just so enthusiastic. Incredible. So this is, and then after that, then in the UK, he was in the UK for some time, in Scotland, and a few other services, but basically, I don't know what year, maybe 74, Prabhupada sent him to India. So the next time I saw him was in Delhi. He was in Delhi when I was there, and he was just collecting for Vrindavan. He was going everywhere to collect money for this temple, for Vrindavan temple, for the Delhi temple. He wasn't a big collector in terms of some. It wasn't his thing, but he was doing it anyway. And I remember, that's all I can't remember much, but he was in the Delhi temple in 76, early 76 when we were there. So then, after that, at some point of time, we'll hear a little bit about it. I don't know how, whether Prabhupada asked him to go or whether he chose to go, but he went to the Middle East. Even today, we know some horrific stories of the Middle East in some countries. At that time, there was a war in Lebanon, a civil war. And most countries were very difficult to preach in, as and still are, of course. In 1978, Tribhuvanath recruited a fearless and determined group of brahmacharis. You probably don't know any of them. Avinash Chandra, German devotee. Nikhilananda, German devotee. Avinash Chandra is sannyasi now, isn't he? I don't know if Bhakti by Bhav Maharaj, I think. I may be wrong. I think it's Bhakti by Bhav. Nikhilananda, who just passed away a few months ago. I traveled with him also for a while. Mahaprabhu, you remember? You saw Mahaprabhu in Belfast at the Rath Yatra? He was the one in the wheelchair I was talking to. Remember? He was in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Old, looking with a man, another devotee. That's Mahaprabhu. So he was in this party. And Padmapani. You know Padmapani? He was in Seattle. He was in that part of the world, Vancouver, Seattle. He was there for a long time. Portland, Vancouver, Seattle. Maybe he's not there anymore. Probably when you moved there, he'd already gone. An old Prabhupada disciple who was a sweet devotee if ever we met. Such a nice person. to travel with him to the Middle East to distribute the just published Arabic translation of Bhagavad Gita. As it is. That was Ravanari, who also passed away a few years ago, who was from Lebanon. He passed away, but he was still there then. So they went to Lebanon because that's where Ravanari was from. While driving from London to Beirut, they were held at knife point in Ankara. Ankara is in Turkey, capital of Turkey. Pretty dangerous traveling through those parts. And stranded without money in Istanbul for 9 days with a broken down van. They managed to survive by selling their large stock of change of heart tapes from shop to shop. This record, Change of Heart, had come out, and we were just doing like anything in England, by the thousands tapes and records everywhere. So they had a stock out, I don't know if we donated them to them or what, but they had a stock of these tapes, and they sold them somehow or another, I don't know how, to make a little bit of money. From shop to shop. Finally they made it to Beirut in the middle of a civil war. In Beirut, Srila Prabhupada's books were very much appreciated. Lebanon's an interesting country. It's half Muslim, half Christian, so it's not Muslim like the other countries, although it's Muslim majority maybe. There's a lot of Christians. Srila Prabhupada's books were appreciated, it says, in the wealthy Christian areas where it was safe to wander about. Once, though, when the devotees strayed into a Palestinian area, some heavily armed PLO men stopped them, piled onto their car, and ordered them to drive to the PLO command post. The devotees were questioned one by one, but Tribhuvanath saved the day by convincing the PLO that they were friends of Ravanari, a Palestinian devotee. He was a Palestinian, so they had a kind of a ticket there to save him. It's like in Dublin, in Belfast. I was talking about Belfast just now. Like that in Belfast, it was, if you were a Protestant and you walked into the Catholic area, your life was a danger. You were lucky to get out alive. Lucky. And vice versa. You could not step into the other camp. Streets were 100% one, suburbs 100% Catholic, 100% Protestant. You could not go there. They have a big wall. Even today, there's a 30-foot fence separating the two sectors of the city. Even today. Well, there's not much goes on, but that fence is still there. Yeah, it was wild. So Palestine was pretty full on like that. In his desire to please Prabhupada, Tribhuvanath had failed to warn his colleagues of the extremely hazardous nature of their venture. They didn't know what they were going to. Into a civil war. Still, some devotees stayed on in Beirut and risked their lives distributing the Gitas. Those who stayed were all arrested and tortured at some point. Nikhilananda. It was Tribhuvanath's principle to spend all the money he had on preaching, printing books, etc., to make sure it was used for Krishna. So we never had any money. We never kept anything. All got used immediately for books. In the beginning, we lived in the poorest part of town, with rats in the shower room, next door to an Arab guerrilla base. We were in the midst of bombing, tanks, and machine gun fighting all the time. In 1 week, anyone wants some water? Water? Anyone need water? In 1 week, the Syrians who were involved in Lebanon's civil war fired 1,400 rockets on a part of town where we had just sold our books. Every evening, some Arab soldiers of various groups raided our flat to see what we were doing but they would usually put aside their machine guns and sit down with us to sing the Mahamantra. Amazing. Just imagine it, like we're here, suddenly a group of Arab terrorists will come in with their machine guns. How would you feel in the middle of the program? Huh? It's like a daily affair, it was like, that's life there. We don't know what it's like now. The boys are, basically speaking, we have it soft now, We're so kind of like, I don't know what to call it, low key. In one sense, low key. There was a report in the deprogram. Have you heard of the deprogrammers? They were big in the 80s. So maybe in the 90s, there was a report in their magazine. They had their own, website or something. And one of the articles in there was about what happened to the Hare Krishnas. They said, we don't need to worry about them anymore. They've merged into society. Of course, they don't know that there's another factor there. They don't know the secret. The medicine's still going out in a different way. On the surface, they didn't see there's much to worry about. We're not capturing all the young boys and girls. We're not on the street, as much. So they thought there's nothing much. Nobody was really bothered anymore. People weren't joining, so they weren't so worried. But the movement was spreading in different ways. It's just planet. Yeah. They really liked doing kirtan with us and went wild about it. The only problem was how to stop the kirtan after a few hours without making them angry. We tried to smile all the time and we depended on Srila Prabhupada. Tribhuvanath once traveled to Damascus. You know where that is? Where is that? Syria. Not Syria. Syria. Maybe it was coming from... I think they used to worship the sun god there, didn't they? They used to worship, that's how it got the name, Syria. They were worshippers of Surya. All these countries, like Thailand used to be called Sham, Burma was Brahma. All the countries, many of the countries where they were worshippers of various demigods, they got the name after the demigods. The Syria was a sun god worship. Tribhuvanath traveled to Damascus, Dhamma, to look for a devotee delivering money from the West. There you go, Dhamma, giving charity. Somebody was gone there and was going to give money. Because that devotee was carrying a large amount of foreign currency, he was suspected of being a spy and was arrested. Tribhuvanath's inquiries about him raised suspicion, so he was arrested too. He was held in a hellish dungeon for a month. His prison was a damp cellar, without windows or lighting, and with no room to stand. This is where they put the terrorists in. It's just a hole, like a box underground, with no lights, no windows, and you can't stand. You maybe kneel at the most. And you have no idea what's outside of it, and if you're ever going to get out of it. Can you imagine? It's like being in the womb, isn't it? But you're fully conscious. This is a sort of hellish situations that some people are in now. No lighting, no room. He was fed only an occasional bowl of watery soup with a piece of mouldy bread, which he described as being not fit for a dog. Fortunately, because of his Irish nationality, his jail term was relatively short, 1 month. Could you tolerate? I don't know. You do, you can't do much about it. And for the sake of preaching Krishna consciousness, these devotees underwent these austerities. Very severe. One time in Beirut, 1978, some devotees, after being held for a week by guerrillas, were released. Tribhuvanath greeted them on their return. "Alive and well," he said. He was so relieved, a bright smile wreathed his face. Nikilananda, Padmapani, you're alive! He thought you'd gone back home, back to Godhead. Later on, other devotees traveled to the Persian Gulf to raise money for spreading Krishna consciousness in the Arab world, like places like Dubai and places which were, quite a lot of rich Indians even there. Devotees came and went over the years, but Tribhuvanath was the guiding force on behalf of Srila Prabhupada and the person who held it all together. After all the books had been distributed, Tribhuvanath wanted to open a temple in Cairo, but there was no money. He handed Padmapani a pile of photos of ISKCON temples and asked him to try to get help from Indians living in Kuwait. He was sure that when they saw what ISKCON had done in other places, they would be happy to help start a temple in Cairo. Tribhuvanath bought him a ticket, and he landed in Kuwait with $5 in his pocket, and only a vague idea of what to do or where to go, and only with faith in Srila Prabhupada and in Tribhuvanath's words of advice, he was successful. He returned from Kuwait a week later with $2,000 to start a Cairo center. Quite a lot of money in those days. 19, whatever it is now, 79. Just 79. Yeah, we'll be together. I remember when Tribhuvanath was in Cairo, I was in Nairobi, and we were communicating with each other with the intention of opening a center in Khartoum. Sudan. It wasn't long before Tribhuvanath was holding regular programs at the local university and in the small temple in Zamalek, a suburb of Cairo. Nikhilananda summed up the whole experience. When you're with devotees like Tribhuvanath, Prabhu, life is very intense and you feel Srila Prabhupada's presence always. And here's from another remembrance. In 1987, Tribhuvanath started arranging Hare Krishna festival. I'll tell you a little something, which generally won't, it may not even be mentioned. But he was in the Middle East for quite some time. There were some problems. The change of GBC took place. And the GBC didn't support him. There was no GBC because nobody ever went there. But then somebody became a GBC and they didn't support what he was doing. There was some unfortunate, things took place. And he left. He was very disappointed. He went back to the UK. He continued to try to collect for the Middle East project. Probably what year did I say? 81. And last time I saw him at that stage, I think, I was hitchhiking, it'd be 81. 81. He was back in England, and he was definitely disturbed and disappointed about being pushed out, basically speaking, somehow. So he wasn't an institutional man. He was incredible. Tamal Krishna Maharaj described him as one of the most amazing devotees, phenomenal devotee who inspired everyone who met him. At the same time, he was always on the fringe. He wasn't one of those, who was just like under the kind of like, don't do it unless you're given the permission of the whole GBC type. He just did it. If you didn't like it, that's life. You could do it. But sometimes things, finances, devotees, because he was initiating, different devotees had gurus, and it became a little bit difficult, So he left. He was back in England. He was going around. He was getting in trouble because the British Yatra, GBCs, or whatever, were not too favourable about him collecting for something outside of their zone. So he was also underground there, going around here and there. And he was doing festivals. He printed this beautiful poster. He would do these fabulous festivals wherever he went with no help. Actually, maybe one devotee. Wonderful festivals, beautiful posters, post up. And that lasted a couple of years, and I never really asked him. I didn't, but then he became, somehow or another, Krishna had his plan. And I remember it was in Manchester. I was hitchhiking down from the to Gate College. And he turned and he had a band coming around him. And we were talking, and it was, it would have been late 81. And he said he was going to go to Norway to collect, because, he wasn't getting too much encouragement. So he left for Norway. Didn't see him again for 4 years. He disappeared. Disappeared. You don't usually hear that now. Says, you know, he fell into an drink. Baby. You don't usually hear this. And he showed up again. About 87. He suddenly turned up again. About 87. 86 maybe. Just, you know, no, 84 years. Maybe 85. He showed up again. Some devotees actually saw him in Brighton. He was living in Brighton for quite some time. Where he was living. And they showed him again in London at the temple. He just burned out whatever was left of, you know, material, what, desire, anything you want to call it. It's like those years, it just burned out completely. From then on, there was nothing. Zero. I don't say you ever saw it before, but there's obviously subtle something there. In 1987, Tribhuvanath started arranging Hare Krishna festivals throughout the United Kingdom. He'd done it on a small scale before. He and his small crew would often visit 2 towns or cities a month, putting on festivals after a few weeks of advertising and street chanting. In 1991, Tribhuvanath returned to his homeland when he was put in charge of the Innisras Temple Island Temple in Ireland. After rescuing the temple from the brink of bankruptcy or insolvency, he began organising preaching activities all over Ireland. And with his festival crew, he built up a few followers by now, well, inspired by him. And with his festival crew, he opened a centre in Dublin. When the devotees would go to the annual festival, Big Fela Festival, troublemakers would throw beer cans at them and try to pull their tent down. Tribhuvanath relished the adventure and madness of it, taking every opportunity to inspire people to chant and dance and take prasadam. If you take it rightly, you get support from people, you know, they appreciated him, and he actually gained rather than lost by this trouble. Tribhuvanath's relish. The kirtans were what really kept things going. They were Tribhuvanath's trademark. No matter what happened, the holy name was victorious. It was incredible. They opened the centre, they had made many devotees in Ireland. The devotees were coming like anything because of the spirit which he had. Yeah. He stayed there for a few years, and then there was, what happened then? Now we're in the late 80s. Yeah, when Bhagavan stepped out, and then other things took place, and this thing and that thing, but the Birmingham Temple in England became taken over by the followers of Narayan Maharaj in the early 90s. They had temple president. They went to Govinda Maharaj. They took initiation from Govinda Maharaj. So this would have been mid-90s now. When Govinda Maharaj passed away, they all went straight to Narayan Maharaj. So Tribhuvanath was then sent to Birmingham to see if he could do something. And he did. He got everything back on track again and saved the Birmingham Temple, you could say. They, Narayan Maharaj moved somewhere else. So that's not mentioned here. During this period in Ireland, Tribhuvanath met a devotee who had travelled in East Africa and who invited him to visit there. After seeing Kenya, Tanzania and Uganda, Tribhuvanath became inspired to travel there with other devotees and do a festival tour. The first African tour was in '95, and there had been at least one tour a year since then, with devotees coming from all over the world to take part. The festivals reached Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Zambia, Malawi and Zimbabwe. In universities and colleges, public stadiums, parks, halls, theatres, hotels and Hindu temples. Once at a festival in Wanza, Tanzania, the whole town, over 10,000 people, came to the festival in a stadium. Practically the whole town turned up. The kirtan beat out powerfully for hours and everyone danced. With much time and effort, Tribhuvanath helped open a temple, the farm, and an orphanage school in Kampala, Uganda. That's the mid-90s. I'm not going to do it, I'll tell some stories about Kampala another day. I was there in Kampala in 1979. 1979. Idi Amin had just been kicked out 2 weeks before I arrived.
So when you were in jail?
In Kenya, Tribhuvanath inspired Krishnamaya Devi Dasi, an Indian devotee who lives in Kisumu, and who regularly helped out at local orphanages to open her own school. In 2001, Krishnamaya opened an orphanage called Little Gokul Education Center, dedicated to Tribhuvanath Prabhu as the patron saint, because he passed away in 2001. He remains the main inspiration behind him. The school educates and cares for 180 African children, mainly orphans and street kids. Some of these kids met Tribhuvanath and all love him as he loved everyone. After some years in Ireland, the festival crew moved back to England to help a small struggling temple in the north and do festivals there again. Or maybe that's what, like the date of the burning, and I can't remember. That's probably what it was. They moved back to England. They were back and forth anyway. They spent half a year in England, half a year outside. And then they helped the Birmingham temple there. Now the crew holds UK festivals during the summer and an African tour during the European winter. Still going on. Although the African tour is now stopped. They're just doing the English, they can't do it. Because of illness, Tribhuvanath eventually had to stop organizing the festivals. At the last festival he attended, he instructed his crew to carry on with the festivals, whatever happened. That's all I'm about, he said. That's all I've ever been about. It looks like a bunch of people jumping around, having a laugh, a good time. But it's Krishna's trick to enter their hearts. Just as someone can sneak into your house without your knowing it, so by these festivals and kirtans, Krishna sneaks into their hearts. I'll always be at the festivals, and as Prabhu said, Narada Muni will always be there too. Well, we're going to show a movie, but it gets late. We have a movie of Tribhuvanath here, which we just downloaded this afternoon. You won't be able to see it, it's a small screen. Maybe another day, we can try to get a bigger screen to show it. But he was amazing. And that last year, when what happened was when he was in Africa, on one of the festivals, he fell sick. He fell sick. And some devotees in Kenya and Nairobi, they were doctors, and they suggested he have a checkup. It looked like it was going away. So they checked him out, and they found out that he had stomach cancer. Stomach cancer. Now, why? Good reason. He was always under a lot of pressure and stress. Not so much from the service, but because he was such a, what's the word about these persons who go into danger zones and sometimes against authority and so on. What's the word of that?
Thrill seeker?
Huh?
Thrill seeker?
No,
It's crazy.
they have a word. What do you call them? They go into the danger zones. What are they called? In the army, what do they call them?
Commandos?
Exactly, commander.
Not rebel?
They're like a rebel, like like the French rebels. What they call them? The French army in Africa. What they call them?
The
French army in Africa. What they call them?
Legionnaires? Legionnaire?
Legionnaires. I don't know. Anyway, they're kind of people who just go anywhere. They're independent. They're independent army people. Mercenary. Mercenary. That's the word. Mercenary. He was a kind of mercenary. Transcendental mercenary. He was under Prabhupada, but he couldn't be tied down. And of course, institutions have a hard time with people like this. Parasham's the same. He's a mercenary. Yes. But people like that they're the ones who get things done. Everyone else sits around talking about doing it. But it oftentimes doesn't get done. because you're not going to get the boat. Maybe, oftentimes not. He was a little bit mercenary. So, he had to, definitely, it disturbed him that, somehow he was so into Srila Prabhupada, he was so into that mood that Prabhupada gave. Just go there, just do it. Just go to the Middle East. To hell with who's Krishna will look after you. He was so in that mood, Not that you have to go with 10 devotees, $1 million and 4 vehicles. Just go and do it. Krishna will look after everything. That was his mood. That's what Prabhupada's mood was. That's how our movement started. The Prabhupada hadn't gone to New York, but that was his mood. Well, he had that mood entirely. He didn't have any sophisticated ideas of management. He was just doing it. That sort of person. So he actually had a lot of anxiety inside, a lot of stress. And many times we see him at night time. He would always have rounds to chant. Always have rounds to chant at night. Hare Krishna. You're going to come back to play the Madanga? In 10 minutes we're having kirtan. Yeah, what chant? Yeah, Krishna Goswami will chant tonight. Yamadharastika. We have a harmonium. We do Yamadharastika in about 10 minutes. And many times you come in because he wasn't welcome at the manor. The manor didn't welcome him. Because he was not under their management. Spent late at night after doing on Harinam all day or doing a late night festival. And he would sometimes sit in the manor in the temple room chanting his rounds. And he'd come in at Mangalarji and he'd still be sat there. Sleeping on it. He sat on his sleeping bag chanting japa. Well, not chanting, he'd fallen asleep in the middle of the night. And he'd be sat there sleeping. Anyone knows that if you sleep, if you're bent over like that, it's also not good for your stomach. He used to generally not eat much, but he would eat at night usually after everything was over. So it's not good for the stomach to do that, that's for sure. So that may have contributed to his stomach problems. But he was suffering a lot of stress for various reasons. But he sacrificed his life. And really, he did. Festivals, even on the last day, in 2001, I was in the UK. I was there for Prabhupada's. He was already sick. In January, I think, 1991, he was diagnosed. 2001, he was diagnosed. He went to South America, to Brazil, to some sort of supposed to be healer near Brasilia somewhere, some magic healer. He stayed there in Brazil for a while, and he came back. And then in the middle of 2001, he was back at the manor again. He was living in Hempstead up the road, staying with some devotees there. He would drive into the manor regularly when he could, because he was very sick. He was I went to see him in the hospital one time in Fulham in London. He was having some treatment in the hospital, and we were talking, and he said, he's going to leave me. He's going to be leaving the hospital that day, and he was supposed to, but because there was a festival in Brighton, he just walked out of the hospital somehow, caught the train to Brighton, led the kirtan, gave the class, and came back. He went back to Hempstead. That was Tribhuvanath. And on Prabhupada's appearance day at the manor, we were sat together for Prashada. But before that, he was leading kirtan. He was leading Guru Puja. In his old way, he used to lead Guru Puja like no one. It was such energy, so enthusiastic. And there he was, almost dead, skinny as a rake. And they were say, "Stop him! He's going to die!" Because it's like he wasn't on the body. He was just going with Vrindavan like usual, head up, and singing at the top of his voice as if he was not this body at all. And incredible. Another devotee said, "Let him carry on. What better way to leave the body?" I could hear them saying different things, And he carried on, and then we took prasadam. He was eating laddus. He couldn't stop eating laddus. He liked laddu also. And then he left after that. I went back to Malaysia. He went off to Brazil again, and then he left his body in Brazil. 2:30 in the morning. he went with one disciple who's still carrying on with his festival program named Giri Hari. And they went together to Brazil.
You know this place? Why you
I can find out for you. Maybe I've got it here. No, I don't know. I wasn't involved in that. Sure. It'll be on the video because Giri Hari will be speaking on the video. Not that one. Might be this one. The main thing was serving Prabhupada. Service was their lifeline. So the Middle East program was great training, like being thrown in the water without knowing how to swim. If you sink or swim, die or do. And the Tiro was a war zone. Only the strongest survive. Or probably Kapakanya. No, I don't have it here. But I can find out for you. Somewhere near Brasilia. But he left his body in Giridhari's house. Giridhari. There's a devotee in Brazil named Giridhari.
Amazon?
Brazil, near the magic man was near Brasilia, the capital city.
Brasilia?
Yeah, near there. But he wasn't there when he died. He left his body in the house of. Is there a devotee in Brazil named Giridhari?
Giridhari?
Yeah. His Tribhuvanath's servant was Giridhari, but the house they were staying in was the house of Giridhari in Brazil. So 2 Giridharis were there. So at 2:30 in the morning, Tribhuvanath asked his servant for some milk. He loved milk. Tribhuvanath loved milk. He loved cakes and milk. He wasn't on a very healthy diet. He didn't eat much, but he wasn't on a health diet. Like that. He didn't eat much. Sometimes he did not eat all day because he would chant. We saw him chant non-stop for 8 hours reading kirtan sometimes. His voice wouldn't work after that. Next day he was up again, doing the same thing. Sometimes non-stop for 8 hours. He couldn't stop. He lived on the holy name. This was his food. He couldn't stop chanting. He'd get everyone to dance and chant. Nothing would stop him. Rain, wind, snow, bombs, nothing would stop him. He would just keep chanting. Keep chanting. There's no other solution to life but chanting. So everyone who knew him, and even those who didn't get along with him, I mean, you'll see on this video here, if you won't watch it tonight, but you'll see. What the second devotee to speak was one of the devotees in the management of the manor at the time. He just didn't like him coming. But he's glorifying him like anything. It's funny, huh? Strange, you know? We often glorify people when they're not around. Not when they're around. You appreciate, you realize, wow, wait a minute, what have I missed, you know? What did I miss? Such an amazing personality. But those who really knew him, I mean, everyone, he was like, it was a phenomenon from the day he joined to the day he left the world. He was just, you don't see devotees like this much. Vishnu Jam was another one in America. The American, Tribhuvanath was like a, kind of the Vishnu. Prema Krishna, I think, said he was like the Tribhuvanath was like the Vishnu Jam of England. He was so inspiring. So inspiring. He went to a few other places. He served in Australia for a while, New Zealand, Australia for a while, doing the festival programs there. Came to me, I met him in Malaysia on his way back one day. Anyway, history is, the devotees were always inspiring. We can't imitate, we don't have we can't be someone else, we are what we are. But that spirit may help us to become a little bit more, gee, you know, why am I so mental about nothing? Just mental about myself. You can care less because get off the mental platform. We're not here to mental out, spend everyone's time trying to analyze our brains. Yeah. Get on with it. Do the service. Just chant. Dance and chant. What can you say? So at 2:30 in the morning he asked for a cup of milk. 3 o'clock in the morning he said, "Dear Harry, I don't think I can breathe any longer." A few moments later he stopped breathing. Disappeared. Dear Harry Prabhu said that his face was just like a child. Okay, so we're going to go now on Harinam. Next 12 hours, huh? All night Harinam in Delhi. Oh! Don't worry, we're not going to do it. But I hope that something there is something to think about.
Have the photo or
Pardon?
picture?
Pardon?
I just want to see the.
I can show you a picture of it. This is a picture right here in Vrindavan. This is Tribhuvanath, this is Kartik.
Very young.
Pardon?
They are very young.
Very young at that time. This would be when they were in, this is the late, well, it's got the Arabic Gita there when it just came out, so it's the mid-70s. Not long after the temple opened. Temple opened here in 75. This is Tribhuvanath with Padmapani. They were together in the Middle East all the time. He was his main man. This is Tribhuvanath, Padmapani.
Maybe we could share a link to the film in the group, maybe share it.
Yeah, yeah, wonderful devotion. What to say? He had a little hair because they're in the Middle East. By the way, do the shave. Right? Well, that's the first Arabic book, the Bhagavad Gita. Rather now you get that translation. Together with some scholars, some Arabic scholars. That's the Krishna Balam temple, the columns in the Krishna Balam temple, so they're sitting right next to the columns. I remember the days. Back a few years. You can't put the clock back, can you? But we can try to come to that eternal platform that he's on. Well, it's like that, even if you only preach like 20 years, probably do more than all 20 of us do in 50 years, in one sense. Incredible. Same in Russia, so many bold preachers in Russia, and that's a shanty. Listing life on them. Spreading popular. So many risks. Armenia? Many of them from Armenia. Where's your father from originally?
Well, he's Armenian.
Armenian?
But he was born in the US.
Born in Europe, but his family are from Armenia.
Yeah.
So you know very well, he knows very well, he was BBC there for some time.
Yeah.
Those first devotees, many of them, what's their names? The first devotees? What's their names? Samadev. One about bread, what's it? Salty bread. What's his name? Salty bread. I met him. Many of the Sankirtan was one. Many of those really devotees. Fearless. I think Armenians are quite fearless people. They're quite a strong occupation.
I think that yeah, they have a strong character.
They're Kshatriya type people, aren't they?
Maybe. But they're very proud of their culture.
Proud of their culture.
They have a very unique.
You got a little Armenian blood in here. Okay, well that's Hare Krishna. Tribhuvanath Prabhu ki
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
I don't know if anyone else in Vrindavan had this opportunity. It just passes by. Did they mention it after Mangalarti today? I didn't know.
No.
It just passes by. Nobody notices.
Well, then it's in the anniversary.
Pardon?
Then it's his.
Today is the 18th year of his passing. 2001 on this day, October 16th, 2001 he met in Brazil. And then they flew his body back to the UK on October the 19th. He had a program at the time.
I was my sister Yashoda, perhaps she knows him.
Sorry?
I I will ask Yashoda Mani, my Lord's sister.
In Brazil?
In Brazil, in São Paulo, perhaps.
I don't know how much
knows
he
him,
associated there with the devotees. He is, I know he was in Girdhara's house, wherever that was at that time. I don't know where he was living, but wherever that was. That's all I know.
So
I don't
she
think he had
knows
much to do.
everybody.
He only went there for medical treatment twice or three times.
Ah,
I don't think, I read it, I don't know. He went from temple to house. Fascinating door, isn't it? We put that bolt over at night and it locks the door from the inside. You want to stay in a room like this? This is an amazing room because this building was, when they got the Gurukul land, Prabhupada came right into the front of this porch here. He stood on the porch right in front here. Stood right there. In fact, not this room, but I used to stay there. The devotee staying there, her name was Moksha Lakshmi. Moksha Lakshmi is Prabhupada's disciple. You know her, I think, Krishna Pastai. Every year she speaks at Prabhupada's Disappearance Day. She's a very talkative lady, quite big. She's the wife of Parashuram. We mentioned earlier with the bullock cart they're going to have today on written around the top. And so his wife, she's probably here. She was staying in there. In that room, some lady. It was the storeroom for straw storeroom. And Prabhupada came right to the front door of that room next door. They opened the door, Prabhupada looked in. Just came and walked on. He walked all around the goat shop. Because we just got the land maybe in 70, I don't know, 77, I don't know what year it was. Early 77 or 76, I don't know, whatever year it was. Or maybe earlier, I don't know what year it was, 76. Hare Krishna. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Jai. Prabhu ki jai. Hare Krishna. So we have Damodarastakam and if Krishna Pastai will kindly agree to lead the kirtan.
Jai.
And Mahaprabhu can play Madonna. Is that okay? It's a pleasure to have you both here today. Thank you for coming. How long are you staying?
To the end.
What does that mean, till the end? Till the end? You're never leaving from Vrindavan again. Till the end. I don't mean anything.
Well, who knows? Who knows? Until the end of Kartik, for sure.
Till the end. End of the universe.
Krishna Krishna
Go Prema Day!
Haribo
Prabhupada K!
Jai.
Vrindavan 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 K!
Jai.
Tribhuvanath K!
Jai.
Tribhuvanath Prabhu K!
Jai.
Go Prema Day! Lord is the sum of the bodies. Hare
Hare.
Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Now we read the translation. The ladies of the not offered now.